Health Minister Gillian Keegan. Gillian, how are you doing?
Well, Ben, how you doing?
Yeah, very well, thanks. Very well. I'm delighted to be speaking to you, and slightly, I feel like a fish out of water because we're not allowed to talk about politics. I smell a challenge, and I think we can. I think we can get there. The first thing, though, Gillian. Just before we crack on with the conversation, we've just heard an appeal there from Leroy and Brighton. I suppose you know anybody with a mobility scooter, do you?
No, I don't. But there's a place in car park in East Plant House in Chichester that has mobility scooter services.
Oh, we have a lead. Thank you, Gillian. Already deadly helpful to us. Now, I want to start on Valentine's Day, Gillian, because we follow each other on Instagram, and I saw that your Valentine's Day card to your husband was slightly unusual this year. It was, in fact, more like a bacon sandwich. I'm not saying I'm averse to it, but a very non-traditional Valentine's Day greeting. Tell me more.
Well, I tested positive for COVID, so I was isolating, and I didn't have a card. So I thought, what can I do instead? So I made him a bacon pussy, as we call it in Liverpool, and I cut a little heart out with a knife. Which, yeah, improvisation, isolation, improvisation. That's what it was. I tell you what, he would prefer that any day to a card.
I'm with him, I think. And if you can't quite picture that, listeners, it looked almost like a more delicious jammy Dodger. It was sort of that kind of colouring. It was really, it looked very appetising. It looked like a cracking sarnie. And it went down well with Mr. Keegan.
He's not that. To be honest, he loves his grub. My husband. If you look at him on Instagram, you can tell that. So he's not that discerning. But yeah, he enjoyed it very much.
And actually, where you are in the world, I bet there's quite a lot of good grub.
Oh, there is actually, and there's so many brilliant pubs around where we are, and you can walk to lots of them as well, which I love. That's one of our favourite things to do. We sort of walk on a Sunday, and walk to a pub, a nice pub lunch, and then walk back having had a drink or two. So that is our relaxing Sunday. That's the day I usually take off. So yeah, there's loads of good grub.
Very nice. I'm doing well. I can see producer Jack out there, but behind the glass isn't even arching an eyebrow. We've gone nowhere near politics. I did want to ask Gillian, actually. I thought about this because you have had so many jobs before the political job. And I want to ask you about your first one because I don't know how many people know this, but at the age of 16, you walked into a car factory as an apprentice. And I just think that must have been quite an experience back at the time.
It was. Well, I left school in the 80s, and I grew up in Liverpool, and anyone who knows anything about the 80s, Liverpool, there was a lot of change in the world, and there were not that many opportunities for young people. There was quite high youth unemployment. So actually, I felt like I got the golden ticket getting an apprenticeship. I'd applied for a couple. I'd gone to a comprehensive school that wasn't much good, to be honest, and so the chance of being able to get on to do A-levels or anything just wasn't possible. So my teacher said to me, you're pretty bright, to further your studies, why don't you try an apprenticeship? They'll teach you, about the world of work, but they'll also sponsor your studies. And actually they sponsored me all the way up to degree level. So I am actually the only degree apprentice in the place where I work now.
Very nicely avoided, by the way. Very nicely skirted round that place where you work now.
Yeah, so that's why an apprenticeship was a life-changing experience for me. I'm so passionate about them; they're just absolutely fantastic because it really worked for me. I love apprenticeships, and actually a lot of people who want to sort of do something later in life. There's now lots and lots of different apprenticeships you can do at any age, any stage. They're just brilliant.
I bet there must be some stories though, particularly when you first arrived.
Well, the place was called Kirby. And again, it's quite let's say an earthy part of Liverpool, and it's on the outskirts of Liverpool. And there was thousands of people worked in this car factory, and a lot of people say that I'm confident or whatever. If you can get through that experience where you're working with 2,000 Kirby women on the shop floor who were super super funny. And would come up with all kinds of tricks that they would play on you, then you can get through anything and you can deal with any situation in life. So it was just brilliant, a fantastic grounding for any young person. And I loved I stayed in the car factory for nearly 8 years, 7.5 years. So absolutely loved it. It was fantastic.
And from walking in the door at 16 right up to degree level. It's an amazing progression, isn't it? Now, Gillian, before I let you go, I'm going to ask some purely selfish questions now because I know I know you've lived and worked in Spain, you speak Spanish pretty fluently, and I may or may not have a holiday booked to Spain in the coming months, and I could do with some linguistic tips. What are the phrases that I need to have at my disposal to make the most of a holiday in Spain?
Hola, buenos días, ¿cómo estás? Hi, how are you? Dos cervezas, por favor, is obviously the key one. Vale, everything's fine. It's such a fabulous place, to be honest. Yo hablo español, pero las personas en España habla muy bien en el costa inglés también. So there's a lot of people who speak English around the coast. So you'll get lots of people who will help you as well. But the Spaniards, I think, they love it if you just have a go at the language. So, the restaurants are always good, ordering things on the menu in Spanish. Have you been before, Ben, I assume?
I have. It's been a few years now, but I'm cannot wait. I'm just sort of practicing the palabras that I'm going to need. What is your favourite Spanish word?
What is it? I'm trying to think. I used to have an answer to that, which was a really obscure word, and I've now forgotten it. This is the problem with not being there. It was something like lentequillas, which was like sequins, which is just this random word that I came up with once, but I don't think it's actually right. What's my feliz, I guess, feliz, which means happy. It's quite a sort of happy place. People tend to be quite happy. I thoroughly enjoyed my time. I lived in Madrid for 8 years. In fact, I've only just sold my flat in Madrid, literally just before Christmas, because it was rented out for years. Yeah. Well, I left just around about the financial crash, so it was very difficult to sell properties. A lot of unemployment in Spain. It had quite a lot of problems in there. I left in at the end of 2009. So yeah. But no, Feliz is probably my happy word. But there's so many. Yeah, I mean it's a fabulous language. It's a fantastic language. I can't think. But I'm going to Google after I finish this. I used to know the word for sequence. It begins with L, and it's like a sort of random word. And I thought I'm always going to remember that because that's it's just.
Well, you definitely will after this.
Gillian, yeah, exactly.
It's been a pleasure catching up, and we have gone a whole conversation without discussing politics. Which, if there's hope for us, there's hope for anyone. Thank you so much for joining us on BBC Radio Sussex and BBC Radio Surrey.